Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome at this webinar of the QUALICHeCK project. You should see my screen now. So as you see, the title is Webinar on Transmission Losses, Thermal Bridges Input Data, Calculation and Verification Methods. Here you see the agenda of this webinar. So after my short introduction, we will have a first session focusing on the approach in Sweden with 3 presentations. And then, as Alexander explained, there is a session on Q&A, followed by 2 other presentations, one from Belgium and another one from Cyprus. And then we have a second Q&A session. And then at the end, I will make a very brief final remarks and close the session. The context of this webinar is clearly, for most of it, linked, let's say, to the EPBD, so the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which I assume you all know, let's say, obliges the member states to have in their country energy performance legislation requirements, the issue of energy performance certificates. So basically, each member state has quite similar challenges. And before, let's say, focusing on what QUALICHeCK is doing, I think it's good to draw attention to the fact that there is the so-called EPBD concerted action, where all, let's say, EU member states work together, exchange information, and so by exchanging information, learning from each other, and in that sense, it should result in a quicker and more efficient implementation. So the public part of it is what's called the EPBD CA book, and what you see here on the left-hand side is the cover of this electronic book. It's only electronically available, and you can download it on the website ebbdca.eu. So you see there on the right-hand side at the top, we have what's called the core team reports, and there you find the synthesis of lessons learned the previous years on topics like certification, inspection, training, but you see also compliance and control, and that's quite heavily linked to what we discussed in QUALICHeCK. And then you see part B, and that's a country-by-country description of the status of implementation of the EPBD in the country itself. So you see in total it's a book of roughly 600 pages, so really it's a goldmine of information regarding the EPBD implementation. And as I said, so there is a specific chapter dealing on the topic of compliance and control, which is very closely linked to what we discuss in the QUALICHeCK project. So QUALICHeCK is an EU-funded project, and which aims, let's say, as a subtitle indicates, to come to better quality and compliance in the context of the EPBD. And basically, QUALICHeCK has 2 objectives. The first one is to set up a series of actions which should result in more attention and practical initiatives for actual compliance with the EPC for new and renovated buildings, or in essence, create boundary conditions which force people to do what they declare so that you can have trust in the EPCs. And the second objective is in terms, I would say, quite similar, again, to set up a series of actions which should result in more attention and practical initiative, but in this case, for achieving a better quality of the works, or said in simple words, create boundary conditions which stimulate and allow the building sector to deliver good quality of the works. This, let's say, project is quite closely linked to a few articles in the EPBD, in particular Articles 18 and 27. So Article 18, and I just highlight the black section. So member states shall ensure that independent control systems for energy performance certificates and reports on the inspection of heating and air conditioning systems are established. And then Article 27 deals with the issue of apparently I have some problems with my screen. But Article 27 is dealing with the issue of penalties, which stipulates that the, let's say, penalties should be, let's say, dissuasive, proportional, in order so that really the member states or, let's say, or that the individuals are really trying to respect what has to be done. So that's the overall context. Now I continue because my screen apparently is blocked. Now it is clear that if you see it historically, that the building shell is a key element say, in reducing the energy needs of a building. And so then we speak to a large extent about transmission issues. Of course, there are also solar gains. But so transmission is clearly a key element of, let's say, the topic of EPBD. And so we have, in the context of QUALICHeCK, identified 4 focus areas, of which transmission is one. So that's the topic of the webinar of today. Another one is ventilation and air tightness. Another one is renewables and multi-energy systems. And the fourth one is, let's say, everything about sustainable comfort. And so within QUALICHeCK, what we try to collect is interesting information about the status on the ground. So what is today in different countries happening? So can we learn from it? Do we see positive experiences or do we see more problematic experiences? Secondly, do we find interesting approaches to come to better compliance, to better quality of the works? And thirdly, to, let's say, give guidance for improvements with respect to, let's say, compliance and enforcement topics. So that's the overall context. And as I told you, so the first presentations, 3 of them, will all focus on the situation in Sweden. So I give now the floor to our Swedish colleagues. Thank you for your attention.